My name is Stephanie Lanham. I am with the Rock and Roll Horror Show, and I'm here with Thomas Smith. First of all, Imaginarium 2023. How's it been so far?
Oh, it's been excellent. It's good to be back. I've been doing this event since it began in 2014, so this is their 10th show, so excellent to be back for the 10th time in a row.
Start to finish, right? Well, it's not finished yet, but from all the way from the beginning.
Yeah. So it's always got a good positive energy about it. A lot of different creative angles present at a convention like this. A lot of different personalities and individuals, and it's really a lot to absorb, but I think it's something that inspires all of us. We can all influence and inspire each other in a very dynamic fashion.
Yes. So what exactly has been your favorite thing? I know that you said that you love the convention itself. You've been doing this from the start. What has been your favorite thing every year? What do you look forward to?
I look forward to seeing all of the people who come back to this event. New faces as well as old ones. People I've gotten to know over the years, readers, fellow authors, fellow creatives, artists, musicians. There's really just a wide palette of talent that shows up at this. And I think that's probably the conversations that stem from that. They're always so interesting. Always leave us with something to reflect afterward. Some, like I said, inspiration. Ideas and inspiration are everywhere, especially at Imaginarium.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I more or less look at this as like a family environment. It's not really a convention to me. It's just open arms. They just accept you for who you are. They don't care about your past. They don't care about what anything they are. They are just
Oh, absolutely.
what I love. And I love the panels. What's been your favorite panel so far?
Well, I just came back from one that was kind of surprising in that it was designing your own website, which could be a very dry topic, but thanks to the caliber of the panelists, it was really interesting. When you have good panelists, that makes it really easy. All of the panelists I shared that panel with, they all had very different takes, talking about it from the technical aspect and how technology has changed and how our world is always changing. Social media platforms rise and fall and collapse, and we really don't know what's going to have the staying power from one year to the next. And the world in general is changing, so our marketing approaches, websites, and all of that, our relationship with technology has got to change and got to evolve with the times. So it was interesting to talk about, and it was far more interesting than I thought it would be. But that was a good panel.
I heard about like the AI panel that they had, and I think it's nice that they're collaborating, like technology and how it's advancing to help other people understand it as well. Because some people, like, I'm not technically savvy by no means. I know how to work Facebook and Instagram and TikTok about it. But when it comes to like designing your website and doing all of that and promoting yourself, I feel like that's a good advantage.
Oh, definitely. And we should learn what we can about the machines and technology because they're probably learning about us as we speak.
Yes.
The rise of the machines. So we've got to be prepared. When it all hits the fan, we go to war in Terminator 3 or 1, depending on
It's going to be all three.
perspective occurs. Yes.
Okay, so I'm seeing books. Your genre, I'm assuming it's horror genre.
Horror. Horror and dark fiction.
So who is your favorite, like, silver screen
Oh, Frankenstein.
Frankenstein? Why?
Frankenstein actually is my favorite from the original Mary Shelley novel. It's one of the greatest stories, not only horror stories of all time. And of course, I enjoy that the relationship between humankind and the creation, which also can fall back to, again, speaking of machines and technology, can be metaphorical in that aspect. I've always found that very interesting, the relationship between the creator and the creation.
Yeah, it's funny that I would have never have thought that, like, tying those two together. So I have 1, 2, 3, so 6 books. Am I saying that right? 6?
Yes, that's right. There's a short story collection, a couple of novellas, and a few novels that I've had.
How did you get into writing?
It was short stories initially. I'd heard something way back when that many authors would start out writing short stories for different magazines and such, which really doesn't have to be the case. But at the time, I approached it in that fashion. But what that did allow me to do was to hone my craft in writing short stories, to really tighten my style and sort of find who I was as an author. So when the time came that I found a publisher, I wrote a novella, very violent horror novella where people are getting shot, stabbed, sliced, diced, murdered, and all that fun stuff. And it was difficult for me to find a market at that time because the market was very different from the way it is today. Novella length was considered to be kind of an awkward length, and also many publishers had stipulations against graphic violence. And so, but I eventually did, and then that opened the gateway for the publication of my short story collection, Pieces of Chaos, because I had already sold a multitude of short stories to different magazines and publishers for anthologies and the like by that time. So they were interested in releasing the short story collection, and that sort of kicked off my career as an author of novels and novellas and the like. But it started with short stories.
So I know I see that you're an author of short stories and your books that are out on the table. Do you do any? Do you have any type of poetry?
Well, I didn't used to, but lately I've been going to some local events. Where I live in Fort Smith, we've got an independent bookstore, Bookish, and they have some people are going to be familiar with poetry slams and the like. I remember going to a few of those back in the 90s. It seemed like it really took off during that time period, and there were a lot of people with a lot of things to say, and it's not really pretentious poetry that people sit up there and read something really flowery. It's people with something to say, get up and shout at the audience, and it's sort of the style they gave the poetry to the people, I think. So it was interesting back then. I had friends that would participate, and so lately I've been attending some of those events called the Four City Slam. They do that once a month, and so sometimes I'll drop in, sometimes I'll read it back, see what everyone else has to say, because the town I live in it's really a blue-collar town, which there's nothing wrong with that, but creativity is not always held in high esteem. So I want to help to cultivate any of that we can muster from the recesses of the town. The people come together and to share what they have to say and celebrate what we're doing.
And I think that's really important. These conventions are really important to people like you who actually come from a blue collar and come here and give a show light. And that way you can expand your horizon. You can dabble in like other genres and whatnot.
Definitely.
So it was very good talking to you. The last question that I will ask you: are you going to be here next year for year 11?
Absolutely. Always.
We look forward to seeing you then too, and it was such a good time talking to you. Tommy, thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.